Tonight's meeting of the Peters Township Zoning Hearing Board will come to order. The board consists of 5 members and 1 alternate. Mr. King, can I have a roll call?
Yes. Ms. Petrolsky?
Present.
Mr. Higgins?
Yes.
Mr. Griffith?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Stevens?
Here.
Excuse me, Mr. King, and for all the members here that will participate in the hearings tonight, can you please identify the member who is the alternate member of the board, please?
Yes, so Mr. Stevens would be our alternate tonight.
Okay. For everybody who's here tonight, as you can see, there are 4 regular members of the board and 1 alternate. The rules of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, in the event of a tie, that means a denial of the application. And so that we have an uneven number of people voting, we are going to elevate the alternate member of the board to be a voting member of the board tonight. If anybody has an issue with that, when you get up to make your application or speak in favor of or in opposition of the application that's before the board, you should note that you do not wish the alternate to be elevated. Okay? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Assisting Planning Director Garrett King in attendance representing the township. A majority of the board is present, and with the majority being present, we are able to conduct business and issue decisions. We have 3 cases on the agenda this evening. The first case is case number ZHB-26-000484, a request for variance from 440-403.1C of Peters Township zoning ordinance by Ashley Cunningham for the property located at 107 Trenton Circle, specifically requesting an additional 1.3 lot coverage beyond the 15% maximum permitted to construct a pool house. We will make staff's memo to this board summarizing the hearing, Exhibit A. The applicant's application is Exhibit B. Mr. King, was notice of this hearing properly advertised and posted?
Yes, it was.
Do you have a copy of these notifications?
Yes, we do.
This legal notice, its proof of publication in the Observer Reporter, a copy of the letter sent to the property owners within 600 feet of the subject property, and proof of property posting will be Exhibits C, D, E, and F. Exhibit G is the applicant's site plan and drawings. Exhibit H is the applicant's site photos. Mr. King, would you provide us the background and analysis on this case?
Yes, so to start off tonight, we have a variance for lot coverage on a residential property. This is in our residential low-density zoning district, roughly half-acre lot, surrounded by other single-family homes, a piece of open space to the rear, and there's some farmland a little bit further away. The property you can see outlined in red does have a stormwater pipe running along the left side of the property. It's that thin purple line shown on the screen up above. The lot itself is relatively flat just around the house, but just as you get to where kind of the boundary of the pool and that existing patio and deck spaces, it then slopes off quite significantly towards the rear yard. You can see, I'll get to a picture here later. The proposed improvement that is requiring the variance is a proposed pool house. As seen from the rear of the yard, it would be 2 stories. As seen from the house, it would be only 1 story in height. The pool house has a total square footprint of 676 square feet. This variance is for additional lot coverage only. The maximum lot coverage in this zoning district is 15%. They're asking for an additional 1.3% lot coverage to enable them to construct this pool house. The main hardship here is the slope of the lot and the topography of the lot. The backyard itself is very steep. The applicant is hoping that with this additional structure on their lot, it gives them some more usable space in their rear yard. They'll connect to the other features in their yard. The pool house itself is relatively common for Peters Township. We have a lot of accessory structures, including pool houses, when people install pools in their rear yard. They do not propose any additional grading that will require the construction of retaining walls or grading within the setbacks next to adjacent lots. Our conditions, if you were to grant this variance, are fairly standard. They have to apply for a building permit. They'll have 1 year to start. And they would have to come in for an additional variance if they ever want additional lot coverage in the future. That's all I have for you.
Yeah.
Mr. King, the pool house is an accessory structure.
That is correct.
So is the accessory structure counted in the maximum lot coverage?
Yes, all lot coverage in this zoning district, whether it's a principal structure or accessory structure, is all bundled under that 15% maximum limit.
And this being a 1.3% increase, the administration came to the decision that this was not a de minimis request, correct?
Correct. Typically, we only grant de minimis if it's within 0.5% or less.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I guess, what is the square footage of the pool house that they're requesting?
The footprint in total is 676 square feet. The additional 1.3% is roughly 300 square feet.
Did they work with you at all to try to reduce the size of the?
So I met with their, I believe it was their contractor. They also dropped off some drawings, and we talked to this a little bit in the beginning to get to these numbers. I believe originally they were proposing something bigger while we were communicating over the phone, but the drawings that were included in your packet and are on the screen are the ones that were submitted for this variance.
Any other questions for Mr. King?
I'm going to lay out some math for you, and you tell me if you think this seems accurate. They're proposing a 676 square foot pool house. They're, as it currently stands, they're at 13.48% lot coverage, which is 1.52%. And ordinarily, we would treat something, the planning department would treat something as de minimis if it was 0.5% or less. So if we take the amount that they're short of 15%, that's 1.52%, plus a de minimis amount of another 0.5%. We wouldn't be here if they were at that or below.
Correct.
And that's, but by my math, if you multiply that percentage by the gross lot size, which is 23,173.9 square feet, that's 509 square feet. So they could have proposed a 509 square foot pool house, and that would have been considered de minimis, and we wouldn't be here.
Approximately, yes, that is correct.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Garrett, so the 462 square foot deck is not included in the coverage, correct? It's just the pool house.
Correct. We're just focusing on the pool house. The deck that is proposed is uncovered, so we're just looking at the pool house as the structure because it would be covered in.
Okay, thank you.
The board is a quasi-judicial body, and as such, we ask that anyone providing testimony in any case register and be sworn in. Whoever is here tonight wishing to testify in this case, please stand and be sworn in tonight. at this time.
Is the applicant present?
Yeah. Do I need to speak if he said?
So
need
you have to be sworn in.
Okay,
You need to at least identify that you were present
yeah.
here.
Do I just stand here or do I come up? Okay.
Well, you can be sworn in from there, but then,
Okay. Sorry.
And please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give today will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, thank you.
Ma'am, could you come up to the
You can
podium
come up
for a
and-
moment? Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Ashley Cunningham, 107 Trenton Circle, McMurray, PA, 15317.
And this is your application requesting a variance to construct a pool house which exceeds the maximum permitted lot coverage, correct?
Yes.
can you sign in? There should be a,
On this piece of paper,
Is that
just,
a-
there's nothing on it, just blank?
yeah, I don't know.
just your name.
Yeah.
Yeah, just your name and address on that sheet, please.
Anything else, like phone number?
No, just your name and address is enough for us.
Did you follow that conversation
Yes.
about the size of the pool building?
Mm-hmm.
Could you talk to us about the size that you're proposing, and if you reduce the size, you wouldn't need a variance?
I talked to that with my contractor, and he just said he thought the size to include everything that we wanted in there would need to be that size, is how he brought it up to me. And he said, but the only way I could do it is to file the variance, because due to the previous owner, he owned the house before us, he put like, an addition on the back of the house, which takes up the already previous existing, and then he already put the pool in, so the pool also goes towards that. So when he went through all the calculations with the architect who did that, he just said this would be the most substantial to get everything you want in there, so that's how he said it.
So he came up with the size of the building?
Yes.
Would
Well,
you-
we both did.
Okay,
Yeah, we both did.
okay.
And he showed me the lesser version, to show like how we would just have to cut some things out of it and what we were doing based on like the amount of money that come into it.
So normally in these cases, there's a hardship of reason why.
So currently, when we bought the house, the way it is, the whole backyard is, it's a graded slope. There's a very, very small like corner of the yard that's flattened, but nothing really in the backyard is like totally usable space. So with this pool house going in, we thought maybe like some dirt maybe could like grade it, like, lessen it at the bottom, I don't know, maybe flatten it somehow, or just give us some sort of the yard that's usable space compared to what we have right now. That's it there. So that back corner is like a little softer now.
I have a question for Mr. King. Mr. King, obviously that photo that's up on the board now shows a significantly sloped, is that your backyard, ma'am?
Yes.
Backyard. When you had discussions with the applicant and the contractor, does it matter because this is exceeding the maximum yard coverage that that back area is sloped?
Slope does not contribute in any way to lot coverage calculations.
So ma'am, is it your testimony that the location for the pool house is only where it can be placed to
On the
allow
hill.
you to utilize the rest of the flat area of your
Yes,
backyard?
yes, it's just gonna go right where those trees are at the top, on the hill.
So when you,
Like
when you're
over that.
designing it, did you look at any smaller designs that would be under this? And
Yes.
we had said there's a, 400 square feet or something like that? What you
It's-
calculate?
This is 26 by 26, 676 square feet, as opposed to 22 and a half by 22 and a half, which would be 506 square feet, which is, would be de minimis at that point.
Yes, he did show me drawings of both. And he said I would just have to take out some things that I wanted in it to make it fit.
He being your contractor.
Yes.
There's someone in the back that has, so you did not get sworn in?
Not yet.
You wish to testify?
Please.
Can you stand and be sworn in?
Terrence Cunningham, 107 Trenton Circle.
And if you raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
You have to sign in, name and address.
Okay. So one thing I'd also like to bring up here is where those trees are, that's the only flat area up there. And my wife actually broke her ankle, had surgery because she fell off of that area right over here where all the pool supplies are. So one of the reasons that the structure is bigger is because it's offsetting that area where the pool supplies are, and they're moving them over, and then it's gonna be flattened out there, so it's not gonna be as dangerous of an area. We have 3 children. The last thing we want is another one to fall down that hill, and it's a pretty, she had surgery and pins put in, and it was pretty rough 2 years ago. So it is somewhat of a safety concern as well.
Has there been any correspondence from the neighbors?
We have not received any communications from any neighbors regarding this project.
Okay.
Ma'am, sir, and you can take your time before you answer. I'm just trying to ask questions for the edification of the board. I don't have a vote, and so it doesn't matter my opinion. But why is it that you need the size of the pool house that you do, rather than making it smaller, so it would be in compliance with the ordinance? Take your time before you answer that.
So what the plan is to take cut that is unusable right now on that slope, place everything right there, move the pool supplies over on the other side of it so that it's not in the area that would be usable. And essentially, one of the reasons that it is larger is because we want to have a bathroom there so that kids are able to stay outside, enjoy the pool, enjoy the backyard without running in the house, and then that way we can keep eyes on them and make sure that they're safe at all times when they're swimming.
Thank you.
And it's 2-story, correct?
Yes.
Is there gonna be a door out to the lower part? And there's the stairs, so you can come in off the pool, walk down the stairs and go out your back?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Can I have a motion to close testimony?
I'll make that
Anybody else
motion.
wish to say
Does anyone else speak about this case?
anything?
I'll make the motion to close testimony.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Um, Anyone want to make a motion to approve or deny?
I'll make a motion
Okay.
to approve. All right, I make a motion to approve. Let me get my bearings straight here, before I make a fool of myself. All right. ZHB 26-00484, request for variance from Peters Township Zoning Hearing Board, Zone 440-403.1C of the zoning ordinance for Ashley Cunningham for additional 1.3% lot coverage beyond the 15% maximum. Let me get up here to the other part.
He has the slide up as well.
Yeah, pardon me?
He has the slide up as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. The following things must be followed. Submit a building permit for the proposed improvements currently under review. The variance shall expire if the applicant does not begin permitted activity within 1 year of the date of building issuance. Any further building permit applications that proposes lot coverage greater than what is permitted by the provisions of the zoning ordinance at the time of application shall require approval by the zoning hearing board prior to issuance. That's it.
Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Can I have a roll call vote?
Mr. Stevens?
No.
Ms. Pachalski?
No.
Mr. Higgins?
No.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Griffith?
I vote no, but it already would have been denied anyway. So that motion is denied.
The motion to approve, you are correct, has not passed. If it's the intent of those who voted in the negative to deny this variance, somebody should make a motion, a second, and vote to deny it.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Can we have a roll call?
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Pachalski?
Yes.
Mr. Higgins?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
No.
Mr. Griffith?
I vote to deny, so that would mean the motion is to deny is approved. So a written decision will follow within 45 days. If anyone is opposed, they have a right to file an appeal to the Court of Common Pleas of Washington County.
So that it is clear that the board has made a decision, and now you have, my understanding of the laws of the Commonwealth, you have 30 days in which to appeal to the Court of Common Pleas, and that'll start, 30 days starts from tomorrow. Within 45 days of the decision tonight, you'll receive findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thanks.
Next, we have the second case, case number ZHB-26-001255, a request for variance from 440-505B1 of Peters Township zoning ordinance by Daniel Barney on behalf of Spitzer A Team PL for the property located at 3617 Washington Road, specifically to reduce the landscaping buffer area A from 25 feet to a minimum of 13.3 feet deep along the rear yard. We will make staff memo to the board summarizing the hearing Exhibit A and the applicant's application to the zoning hearing board as Exhibit B. Mr. King, was notice of this hearing properly advertised and posted?
Yes, it was.
Do you have a copy of those notifications?
Yes, I do.
This legal notice, its proof of publication in the Observer Reporter, a copy of a letter sent to property owners within 600 feet of the subject property, and proof of property posting will be Exhibits C, D, E, and F. Exhibit G, applicant's plan, renders and photos. Exhibit H, neighbors' communications. Exhibit I, buffer yard A detail. Mr. King, would you provide us background and analysis on the case?
Yes, so this is a commercial property, currently the Acura dealership along Washington Road. It is roughly 3.16 acres in size. It's zoned general commercial, which is our primary commercial zoning district. The surrounding uses along Washington Road are all commercial uses. To the rear of the lot, it abuts a residential neighborhood, so there are adjacent single-family homes for this property. The lot itself is mostly flat. Towards the very rear of the yard, there is a relatively steep slope before you reach the residential lots behind it. The request is to reduce the required rear yard, the required 25-foot buffer. This buffer is required between any commercial development and adjacent residential properties. With the proposal that they have, their amount that they wish to encroach into that buffer varies based on their drawings and their application to us. The smallest that buffer would become is 13.3 feet. They're requesting this reduction in the buffer size so that they can expand their parking area. Along with this development, they are proposing an addition to reconfigure the building and make a expansion to the building, but that does not change the buffer. We're really just looking at the proposed parking and how that encroaches on that buffer area. As I stated before, this buffer is required to be 25 feet between any commercial development and any adjacent residential property, and that's the only variance that they are seeking. The applicant is proposing landscaping still in that buffer area, even though that buffer area will be smaller and that there is a slope, and they're planning on retaining that slope and existing vegetation. The applicant is mostly citing that this encroachment is very minimal and is required in order to expand their parking area for their growing business. I have received as staff quite a few neighbor communications from the adjacent residential properties. This plan originally came in as a land development. Neighbors were both notified during when this plan went to Planning Commission. At Planning Commission, it was tabled so that the applicant could come to this board for this variance. We had neighbors show up there. Some of those same neighbors submitted comments. I also believe there's a number of neighbors in the room with us tonight that wish to speak on this. Most of the neighbor communications that were given to me are citing the reduction of the buffer and their proximity to the commercial district is their main concern. If the board were to grant this variance, fairly standard conditions, although they would have to submit any updated drawings to us to go back in front of Planning Commission whenever this would be rescheduled for Planning Commission. That's all I have for you tonight on this one.
I have questions, yeah. So buffers are the buzzword in the township for the last couple of months. Is this a landscaping buffer, a parking buffer? What type of buffer is it?
So this is a landscape buffer.
Okay.
Anytime there's commercial development adjacent to a residentially zoned property, there's required to be this buffer area A that is 25 feet in width, and has the plantings shown in the detail provided.
Do you know how wide the buffer is now? So from property line to, I guess, edge of pavement? Do we know? I'm having a hard time with the site plan, kind of figuring out where we are.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull up a better drawing for you. So, as you can see on the screen in front of you, the dotted line here is the property boundary. This dotted line here is the required 25-foot setback. The area in white is the existing parking area. So the existing buffer is somewhere between 25 and roughly 28 feet.
So they're looking to extend their parking into the buffer.
Correct. Everything you see that's shaded
Is
is the
proposed.
proposed expansion of parking.
So where is the 25 foot?
This dotted
Oh,
line.
that dotted line, okay. Oh, okay, I got you.
So currently, there's one row of parking, they want to put two.
I believe
Apparently.
so, yes.
Go ahead.
Mr. King, you have referred to this as parking. Is this parking that's necessary for the activities of the business for customers coming in? Or is this parking that's presented so additional cars to be sold will be placed there?
So this expansion of parking is not required to meet their minimum parking standards as per the zoning ordinance. It is my understanding that the expansion of parking is related to the business for storage of vehicles, potentially employee parking.
And the original site plan, or this site plan, was approved by the planning commission and council?
The new development plan went to planning commission, I believe, in July. Due to these concerns, it was tabled at that meeting so that the applicant could revise or submit a variance. The applicant chose to submit a variance and is before you today. Whether a variance is granted or not, this development plan will have to go back to planning commission for approval.
What was the nature of the revision option that was provided by the planning commission to the applicant?
Planning commission did not give specifics as to how they should revise the plan, just that they would have to revise the plan to meet the ordinance.
This drawing and site plans that were provided as part of the application seem to show that that variance request is at an angle. Am I looking at that incorrectly?
The rear property line is not a straight line. It juts in or out depending on how you look at it as it goes across the length of the property. The buffer parallels that property line. So that's why the reduction in the buffer at some places is larger than others.
So if I'm looking at this drawing that you have up on the board, and I currently have on my screen, the right-hand side seems to effectuate the request for an approximate 11.7 foot variance, but down at the far left-hand side, because it shrinks, that request for variance may only be a foot or less.
That is correct. It varies along the distance.
And there was nothing provided to the administration and provide to the board, which indicates how that request for variance diminishes as you go from right to left.
That is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. King.
I think one of the issues is the parking lot isn't parallel with the property line.
Any other questions for Mr. King? Okay.
Right in the middle, is that a dumpster area or is that a building?
I believe that is a dumpster area.
See, Mr. King, you brought up a good point. Prior to the site plan, does this property or does it conform to the parking ordinance?
The current parking for that site meets our minimum parking
Okay.
requirements.
Perfect.
But again, that's parking for vehicles that are intended or hope to be sold, not customer parking.
My understanding is our minimum parking requirements are based off of estimated trips to and from that property. So ideally customer parking. So if you were looking, for example, a high turnover fast food restaurant may require a lot of parking compared to a sit-down restaurant or vice versa.
Well, maybe I'm misspeaking, but isn't this site plan for vehicle sales?
My understanding is the most of the proposed new parking is for storage of vehicles that would be sold as part of the dealership's business.
And around the area where the showroom is located, that's where you're required to have customer parking, handicap parking, things of that nature.
Correct.
So, and I know the applicant would address this if the administration has some questions. But the area that's shaded and the area requesting for the variance, that's to provide vehicles to be situated there in the event of a sale or to show customers.
That is my understanding, but the applicant could speak better to that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Was neighborhood communication received from adjoining owners?
Yes, yes. So in your packet, you'll see a number of communications that were emailed to myself. Those were cut off on Friday when I sent out the dockets. Since then, I've had one phone call with an individual who I do believe is here tonight, and I've received no other communications.
The board is a quasi-judicial body, and as such, we ask that anyone providing testimony in this case register and be sworn in. Whoever is here tonight wishing to testify in this case, please stand and be sworn in at this time.
And please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Can you sign in with your name and address? Please state your name for the,
Catherine Schuster,
Oh, okay.
Spitzer ATMLP.
Missed it.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So Garrett did a great job of summarizing our project here. We are planning a service addition based on continual requirements from Acura to have more service bays and more building square footage. We also need some more parking, and just to set the record straight, that back parking lot will likely be for employees so that we keep the activity around the building. Could be some service vehicles back there too, but most of our inventory will be up towards the front. So what brings us here tonight is the fact that we are asking for a variance on the landscape buffer. Right now, the site provides some peculiarities. The back boundary is kind of jagged. So when you try and expand your parking lot, unless you're gonna have a jagged parking lot, the 25-foot buffer, it becomes an issue. So we understand that some of the residents have some serious concerns about the landscape and the trees that exist behind the dealership. Right now, if you stand on the back lot of our dealership and look up to the houses, it's a 19-20-foot elevation change. And it's all woods and it's all hillside. We're taking down, and I have Dan Barney, our architect, and Tim Gerhardt, our civil engineer, with me to really convey the minimal impact that we're trying to make on that hillside. And in fact, the landscape buffer, all of those trees, I don't think any of them, I think they all lose their leaves in the winter. But the landscape buffer, we're putting up all evergreens. So that's an improvement on a buffer. So we're trying to accommodate as best we can. So, Tim's gonna talk a little bit about the topographical barriers that we have, the irregular lot shape that we have. We really feel like this buffering and screening with the landscape area, even though we're asking for a variance, that's still a very significant buffer of landscaped area. And that's quite an investment
think so.
that we're making in that, and I think it will be
This is up this way 'cause
very helpful
see sky.
as to not create any adverse impact on the neighborhood.
See sky down here.
We also believe that, we could have tried to expand down to the southern part of our rear property, but there's a ditch back there. We would have to take out almost all the trees on that hillside to culvert it and flatten it because it dips off. So that's what kind of made us go to the north end of the property, because we wouldn't have to take down nearly as much foliage on that hillside, and the variance that we would ask for would be significantly less than if we went to the south side. Lastly, I'll say this before I turn it over to Tim and Dan. The circulation around that, parts deliveries, car deliveries, all that, it really bottlenecks up there, and there's gridlock, and can be a little hazardous. And so we were just trying to give ourselves a little breathing room to alleviate some of those hazards. And with that, I'm gonna let Tim speak a little bit about the topography and the lot itself.
Before you get to that, and ma'am, before you leave the podium, Mr.
Of
Chairman, I have a
course.
question.
go ahead.
So you've indicated that the request for the variance is to allow employees to park in that area?
Well, in this back parking lot to the top left.
You can approach and point.
Oh, okay.
'cause I don't know where you're pointing.
So this, Eric said, this white boundary, this is all existing. This gray is new, and this darker gray, you can see our boundary line, jig jags, is the setback variance that we're asking for. These will likely be service customer. In other words, when you take your car in to get it serviced, and then we're waiting for you to pick it up, we put a number on it and park it in the back, and then when you get here, a tech comes out, brings it, and delivers it out to you. So that will likely be service vehicles for customers. Back here could also be some of that, but we'll probably have some employee just to alleviate some of the parking spaces that customers are taking up here.
So how many spaces are you adding?
33.
And did you look at how many spaces you would be able to add without having a variance?
9. Is that correct, Dan? We did an exercise without the setback variance?
Yes, Dan Barney, 740 Marks Road, Valley City, Ohio. Yeah, if you can see the lower, I'll just point, the left parking area, there's not a feasible way to pull this down, and then the access drive gets too narrow, so you'd almost have to pull in, and then you'd have to reverse your way out to get in, so it's not an ideal situation
Right on
to
the
be pulling
right-hand
it
side.
out.
That's why I said, that's the south side of the property I was talking
No,
about.
I mean, this gentleman pointed out to the left-hand side,
This area here?
yes.
Yeah, so this is a minimum drive aisle, 24 feet. That's what we have right here. So if we were to pull all this is existing, so to pull all this down, it would just encroach closer to the building.
So like, usually with these variances, there's some kind of hardship that is, and I guess what would you say is the hardship that you need
Well,
this
there-
variance?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, we do have bottlenecks back there. There's also, like I said, I mean, I don't know if this counts for anything, but Acura is still expands, they have planning potential for every dealership out there on how many service bays they're supposed to have, how much square footage they're supposed to have, how many parking spaces they're supposed to have, and that keeps changing. So those requirements are on us. And really, that location is the only place, because of the nature of the back property line and the topography of the back, where we can expand.
Can you elaborate on the right side? I'm looking at the boundary line, I'm looking at the 25-foot buffer. You
Here?
probably don't have to take out any trees inside the buffer if you went that side. Is that
Well, so there's
accurate?
a ditch here.
Okay.
I'm gonna let Tim talk to that, because he's the civil engineer. Why don't you go ahead and
Okay.
walk him through that?
If we, before, ma'am, if I could ask you one other question about,
Of course.
regarding your requirements from Acura. Just want to make sure I'm clear. Based on what you know now about those requirements, will the dealership still be able to continue operating at this property without a variance?
I'm not sure I understand the question. You mean, are they gonna take our,
Well, based on based on what you know today about Acura's requirements, is the dealership going to be able to continue operating at this property?
So here's how it works. They come out with planning guides, and they have square footage and bay requirements for showroom, customer service area, or customer lounge areas, service department, parts, administration, and then the outside parking areas. So many per function. Meeting those planning guides is important because we have contracts with Acura. Now, I'm not saying that they're gonna shut us down, but there could be adverse allocations or whatever. Or they may force us to try and find another site. We started the Acura dealership over in Monroeville, and they pushed us to come to the South Hills area, and we did that and built this dealership in 2003 or 4, I think it was.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so my name is Tim Gerhardt, I'm the engineer. So we want to add 22 new spaces to this 3.12 acre lot without doing any damage to anyone or to do any damage to anyone's properties. The back line has already been discussed. It's irregular. It provides a hardship in that you're going to work around the buffer, which at the tip of like the sawtooth, the tips stick into our property. So that's a hardship. Looking at the topography, from the parking area, there's residential properties in the back. From the parking area to the houses is like 200 feet. The elevation difference is like 25 feet. Some discussion was made about this back rear area. The stormwater, the lot is actually sloping left to right. Stormwater runs from left to right. There's a culvert at the right end. It sits down 44.5 feet below the parking area. And from the parking area, it's only about 100 feet. That's a very steep slope there. To try to develop that, build that up and fill, you'd have to cut in a key at the bottom, so you'd rip out all the trees.
Thank you.
So you'd lose all those trees. That's about it.
You'd lose all the trees close to the property line or up to the buffer?
Well, you'd have to go down and cut a key in so that the fill stays in place.
Yeah.
So you'd have to remove the trees to do that. And to fill that in, all those trees would have to, because that would all need to be filled in with maximum 10 foot of fill.
So I see the culvert you're talking about. Is that off your property? That's on
That
the-
is on the other property.
Yeah. And there's a swale just feeding that. Is that correct?
Which,
So there's no pipe back there. It's just a swale. It's natural.
there are pipes under the property.
Okay. I see maybe an inlet
From
there in the
age-old,
parking lot.
from age-old drainage solutions.
Page 15 of the PDF.
And that catches, mostly it catches the runoff, from these residential properties.
Sure. And then off
Directs it toward
your,
the culvert.
so that I have a retaining wall there.
I'd like to turn it over to Dan Barney, he's the architect.
Great, thank you, Tim. Yeah, I have some additional images that are not part of this packet that may help portray
Just
some-
bear with me on
some
this.
additional questions that were brought up. This drawing here, I spent some time this week to kind of document the variance dimension and how it changes as, the slope, as it follows the property line. So towards the right side of the area we're looking for relief from, it goes from 11'8", and then as you move forward to the left, it goes to 7'2". Over by the dumpster enclosure, which is this guy here, it goes down to 2 feet, 2 feet 2 inches, and then it kind of jogs back a little bit because of the way our property line is, and then it's 9'5", and then it goes down to 6'8" at the end. So some of the changes that we did make too from Planning Commission last month were being respectful of the landscape buffer. We did move the dumpster enclosure, was encroaching on the buffer previously, so we moved that out. We had light poles that were in the landscape buffer. I moved those out, so those are now going to be along the commercial side, and also at this corner here. So then we're going to eliminate the lot that way. I do also want to mention that the buffer itself, the plantings that are in the zoning ordinance, we're following that. These are premium plantings that we're putting in here. They're eastern hemlock that we have specified, and Norway spruces, along with some of the lower plantings. So it's multi-tiered, which I have a rendering that was in the packet for that. I also did another study from the Grandview side, and it just so happens that when I was using Google Earth or Google to drive, virtually drive, it was fall time, and you can really see that it really is all deciduous trees that's there, so you can see straight through to the Spitzer building from Grandview. A little difficult to see with this image I have here, but the white line here is what I'm projecting as our pavement line when we expand. So it's not visible from the street. And then 1 year of tree growth, and projecting it just to come up to the bottom of the hill slope from the residence side. And by the time we get to 10 years, I'm projecting that these trees are gonna be taller than the building itself. So it's my opinion that this, if we give it time with these plantings, they will be super tall. These trees grow from 40 to 60 feet in height. When mature, they grow at a rate of 2 to 3 feet per year. So it's only going to take a matter of a few years before these things really start popping out of the ground. And one other thing to add, I visited the site again today just to walk it from Spitzer's property side. This area that we're showing here, right along here, this is the existing pavement line is the white. I stood here. There really are no trees there currently. It's overgrowth. And that's the area that we're looking to develop. Furthering that, this landscape buffer, if we don't have to tear down what's there just to put in this buffer, we can supplement what's there. So there's some decent sized oak and maple trees that are back here that are within our property. We could keep those, and we would work around those and add the evergreens in between those, so you get a nice variety that comes in between the trees that aren't currently there. Garrett, I think I did have a rendering that showed what the image could look like. There we are, this guy here. So this would be a parking expansion. So the cars that are in the front row, those are existing. The dumpster enclosure, that's new. And then the new expanded area beyond that. And then if we were to take down all the plantings that are within our buffer, we would plant all new in there, which is what these would look like. These are about 25 feet shown here. But based on my walkthrough today, I would propose we leave whatever mature trees that are worthy of salvaging within that buffer that we plant in between.
So that rendering is 2036?
10 years from now, we get, yes, 2036, yes.
So if you were to plant, what's the height of the tree, of the evergreen, if you planted today?
Today, that would be, I don't think you're really gonna see that much, because we're proposing 6-foot tall trees. And I estimated that the elevation height would be at 1049, grade height. So our parking lot level is at 1046. The trees would be planted approximately 3 feet higher than that, so that's the way that the topography rolls up.
So the tree would be 6 foot tall planting today?
Day one.
So if you go back to your photograph where the winter or fall photograph,
That is,
so that one there, what's the height of those trees now?
these trees here?
Yeah.
These are probably 50, 60 feet
Okay.
tall.
So how long would it take for your trees to get that tall?
To get to that height,
Yeah, how many years?
oh my goodness,
Not to put you on the spot.
I'd have to do math, if it's 20 years.
20
If they
years.
grow 3 feet every year, that'd be
60 feet.
60 feet, it would get up to 60.
Okay.
But the point being is our building is right here, so really I feel like a 25-foot tall tree is going to cover the building.
But many of those trees that are being shown, you're not even disturbing, correct? Because they're
They're-
closer to the slope?
That's correct. Most of these, some of these are
Yeah.
not even on our property, so those would stay. And then there's some that are at lower elevation. There's actually a tree that has fallen down that's not on our property, that our tree is holding it up to prevent it from falling on our lot, so we would have to get permission to clear that out.
Has there been any discussion with the planning commission about like long-term maintenance? Because obviously we know we've been having some really harsh winters. If any of these trees, after they were planted, since they're not mature, you know, if there was to be an issue, would the applicant consider entering into or, you know, being open to a condition that you'd have to enter into some type of long-term maintenance plan if they were to die, that you'd replace?
Of course.
Mr. King, the obligation of the applicant is to have an evergreen that's 5 to 6 feet high.
I believe so, correct.
Whether it grows 10 feet, 25 feet, or 50 feet, they just have to make sure that the evergreen that's planted is at least 6 feet high, correct?
So in our ordinance, all of our planting buffers have minimum planting requirements, caliper, height, species, number of plantings within a certain area, and there's a requirement for them to replace those trees within a certain number of years. But if those trees do not grow to, we do not have a requirement that they grow to a certain size in a certain amount of years.
But if it's dead, we'll replace
If
it.
it's dead, you have to replace it.
Of course, yeah.
The height has to be 6 feet.
At
They
the time
can't
of planting.
plant saplings or whatever, I guess they're called saplings, and hope they grow.
That is correct.
I have a question. Again, I only ask these questions for edification for the board, but I think it's Exhibit G that you referred to as a rendering, sir? That's it.
Yes.
So that doesn't exist currently,
That does not exist currently.
That's an after picture, or rendering.
I hope. It's a
That's-
hope, it's
I
a hope
hope.
picture.
Oh, of course, absolutely, that's up to you
I
guys.
don't know what it's an after of, but that depicts 2 lines of vehicles.
Correct.
The front line exists now,
Yes.
and then we're gonna double stack.
Okay, double stack. And to clarify your testimony, the double stacking, the back half of the double stacking would be an area for employees to park or for service vehicles to be located?
Well, the double stacked area would be service customer park, you know, like, if we haven't worked on a car yet, and we don't have an open lift, we need to put it somewhere, because the customer dropped it off. So we might park it back here and tag it number 113, and then when we're ready to work on that car, we come and get it. Over here would likely be employee parking. To-
You're pointing at something
I'm sorry,
that's
you're
only
right.
you
Well,
can
I
see.
was counting on that camera, Dan, yeah, that would be employee.
Now, so that area that's employee parking, do you also intend that that'll be double stacked?
No,
As drawn, singles here. Here, if you could go back to that rendering.
It's the-
So the lot right now ends about right here. So this is all new. This is, you know, pushing back into that finger of our property back here. So this is the area that we're talking about would be for employee. Single row employee parking back in the corner.
And did I understand correctly that the reason you designed that back lot that way is for access purposes, to be able to get back in and out, so that's why you didn't double stack them?
exactly.
And that area which you described on the rendering, which is Exhibit G, where the proposed employee parking, the variance you would be requesting goes from 9.5 feet to 6.8 feet. Is that right?
6.8
At the far
north?
north portion, it would be 6'8" buffer reduction.
And am I correct then that the only area in which you are requesting the maximum variance of 11.7 feet would be to the far right, and it looks like it takes up maybe 2 parking spaces of a double-stacked parking space.
That's correct. And that starts to
then it
taper
goes,
down.
then it reduces, under your testimony, to 7.2 feet, and then down to 2 feet, 2 inches.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have one more. The addition to the building, is that not doing any new parking, but the addition to the building, is that generating any need for more parking?
Even with the proposed addition to the building, they would meet their parking minimum requirements with the existing parking on site.
All right, so there's several people that stood up and were sworn in. Who wants to provide testimony? State your name, sign your name and address.
I'm George Clark, and I'm at 212 Grandview.
Mr. Clark, did you submit any letter?
I did. And I've
Yep.
got copies here if that would be useful. I have additional copies I could
Has
give.
that, Mr. Clark's letter been a part of the packet here, Mr. King?
I believe so. I only received written communications prior to Friday, and all of those communications were included in the packet sent to all the board members.
I think I sent mine in Tuesday or Wednesday, so it should be in there.
Can you state your name again and address so I can find it?
George Clark, that's 212 Grandview.
It's like
It begins, it looks like on
it's the
PDF.
last 3 pages on Exhibit H.
PDF page 35.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to request party status. Do I need to do that? Do I need to just assert that, or
That's fine, you place that on the record.
Okay.
I went, and I'm looking, since this gentleman has mentioned it, anybody who wishes to speak. Party status gives you the right to information concerning the hearing before the board. There are certain requests and letters that I have looked at that indicate party status, and the request is for any transcripts, exhibits, notices, decisions, and things like that. The township has the right to charge for those type of things. This young lady sitting to my right charges for her work, and if she charges, the township has the right to pass that off. Merely requesting party status doesn't mean that you get all of that automatically and, most importantly, for free. I want to indicate that. Secondly, if an appeal is taken, my understanding of the laws of the Commonwealth request that anybody who's asked for party status before the board, you still have to file a petition for intervention if an appeal is taken to the Court of Common Pleas and participate in that manner. So, but your request on the record of party status is sufficient to allow that to happen.
Thank you. I understand that under Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code 910.2 and the Peters Township Code of Ordinances, the burden of proof lies with the applicant, the appellant. The appellant must prove that the request for a variance meets each of the 5 burdens listed in the ordinance and on the relevant application. After attending the July 9th Planning Commission meeting and reviewing Spitzer Acura's application for variance, I don't believe that Spitzer Acura meets any of those 5 burdens. Indeed, some of Spitzer's responses on the application seem to ignore the obligation to address those burdens altogether. I have several questions that I would like to hear Spitzer respond to, and I'm prepared to ask them in the order of the burdens, if that's permissible.
You can present your questions to the board. The applicant is under no obligation to answer any of the questions, and I'll leave that up to the applicant should they wish to answer your question.
All right, these are in regarding Spitzer's contention that unique physical circumstances or there's unnecessary hardship and that necessitates a variance. Spitzer's variance application cites the physical circumstance of a steep grade as the reason for their variance request. And Mr. Higgins, you sort of anticipated this question in some of your comments, but I was wanting to know exactly where the grade change is located, if the current parking lot is constructed on this grade, and if not, how far into the buffer does the steep grade begin?
You can ask your questions, and if the applicant wishes then to take the podium and answer
Sure.
any questions, they are permitted to do so. But
If this steep grade is located within the required buffer, what specific hardships does it cause for Spitzer's current operations? How is a steep grade within the buffer preventing Spitzer from conducting their business with that required buffer in place? Has this situation changed recently in a way that no longer allows Spitzer to conduct reasonable business as it has over the last 2 decades?
Well, if I can answer the question, as a matter of law, any applicant is allowed to request a variance regardless of how their business is operated, what they anticipate their business will operate with or without a requested variance. But as a matter of law, any applicant can ask for a variance.
If Spitzer can identify specific hardships caused by the elevation change within the required buffer, why weren't they noted on the variance application? Is it true that the grade change will only impact Spitzer's operations if they receive the requested variance and then move into the buffer? If so, how can the fact of the grade change be a reason that the variance is needed? At the July 9th Planning Commission meeting, why didn't Spitzer mention the grade change as the reason this variance is needed? All right, these are a few questions regarding the claim that there is no possibility of reasonable use without the variance. Spitzer's variance application does not address the second standard in any meaningful way. It describes the steep grade that lies within the 25-foot buffer, but it does not begin to explain why Spitzer now requires a variance to continue reasonable operation. Hasn't Spitzer operated reasonably within the standard zoning ordinances for over 2 decades? At the July 9th Planning Commission meeting, Catherine Schuster began her presentation by noting that Spitzer is growing, which she described as good news. Doesn't Spitzer's success make it obvious that this variance is not required for Spitzer to reasonably operate as it currently does under standing zoning ordinances? Is Spitzer already storing additional vehicles elsewhere? If so, doesn't that indicate that reasonable alternatives to the variance are already in effect? All right, these next questions are regarding the claim that the hardship is not created by the appellant. And as a foundation for my questions regarding this burden, I plan to read the transcript of Catherine Schuster's statements from the July 9th Planning Commission meeting into record. I also request that the video recording of that July 9th meeting be formally attached to today's record. This is a special.
Have that video?
It's available online
Okay.
through the Planning Commission.
This effort to read the transcript of Ms. Schuster's full statement, I don't know how long it is. That was before the Planning Commission. Mr. King, do you have record of that?
We have copies of it. I do not have those on hand, but we have record.
Maybe I could just read a couple paragraphs that are relevant to that
You
third
can do that.
burden.
I'm just The entire statement can be submitted in the evidence if you wish, and the board can look at it if it deems it appropriate. But if you have certain portions of the transcript which you like to read, that would be, you are allowed to do that.
All right. Okay, my name is Kathy Schuster. I'm the Director of Real Estate for Spitzer. And I think the last time I was here, when we built the building in 2003 and 4, and we're growing, which is good news. Let me clarify a few things just for everyone. So the parking lot would extend over to here. If you go back one slide, Garrett, please. Anything in gray is new. If it's in white, it's already pavement, okay? All right, go back to the aerial, please. From this parking lot up to here is 25 feet grade difference up the hill to a steep hill elevation. Okay. And to answer your question, we wouldn't be able to build that parking lot if we don't get this variance. It's just we're not going to be able to fit parking spaces in there. We've lowered all our lights below the 8 on the photometric study in anticipation that residents might have an issue with lights spraying up into their areas. That's a valid concern. We totally understand that. We will only take trees down where we're going to pave. That's apparently changed since then, I guess. So you'll probably have a good 10-foot to 15-foot buffer in certain areas. I mean, unless you're allowed to measure up, that's 25 feet. But you were to do as the crow flies, it will be 10 to 15, depending on where along the back it is. So what this allows us to do is this. Right now, our service department is growing. We're going to be able to add 5 new service bays, reconfigure our parts department, and make our parts delivery more efficient. We'll probably add an additional 6 or 7 jobs. And because we're doing a 3,700-foot addition back here, we're going to lose some parking along the back of the building. So there's going to be a need for additional parking spaces. If we were to try and do this addition, we can't do it if we can't find some more parking. We thought about asking to expand up front, but we thought maybe the township would prefer it in the back since this is just dead space. I prefer it in the back, but we're open to whatever. We just want to grow. Why does Spitzer want to add 5 new service bays? Spitzer's variance application claims that the variance is necessary to correct a hardship caused by the vertical elevation change in the current buffer. How will additional service bays relieve that hardship? Why did Spitzer title this project Spitzer Acura Service Department Addition? Why is a service department addition needed to relieve a hardship that Spitzer claims is caused by a vertical elevation change in the required buffer, separating their property from residential properties? Why doesn't Spitzer's variance application mention the desire for growth and expansion that constituted the majority of Ms. Schuster's statements at the July 9th Planning Commission meeting? Ms. Schuster concluded her statements at the Planning Commission hearing by saying, "We just want to grow." Can Spitzer explain why that central desire for expansion and growth would not fall into the category of a hardship created by the appellant? All right. Questions regarding the claim that the variance will not alter the essential character or impair adjacent property. Does Spitzer agree that the required buffer is intended, at least in part, to protect residential properties from the impacts of commercial development? Won't the elimination of a significant portion of that protection, 47%, impair the adjacent properties? 100% of the buffer if you count all of the trees that are going to be removed and not the new buffer they're putting in. If this variance is granted, will the footprint of Spitzer's dealership move substantially closer to residential properties? Will vehicles and lighting move closer to our homes? Will the dealership be more visible from Grandview Drive? If so, on what grounds does Spitzer maintain that these changes will not impair the adjacent residential properties? Does Spitzer plan to remove existing mature trees in the buffer? They told us today they do. Exactly how much of the existing wooded area in the buffer will be eliminated? Roughly how many trees will be cut down? The mature landscape screens the residential properties from both the adjacent commercial properties and the busy highway immediately beyond them. On what grounds does Spitzer contend that dramatically reducing this screen will not negatively impact the neighborhood or alter its character? Spitzer's variance application addresses the burden that there will be no harm to nearby properties simply by stating simply and irrelevantly that the area is heavily wooded and the existing landscape is intended to remain in place as much as feasible. That's their full statement on burden 4. This statement does not begin to address the question of whether harm will indeed be done to the residential properties by eliminating a substantial portion of the wooded area in the buffer. Should we understand that non-response as an implicit acknowledgement that Spitzer knows this will harm the nearby properties in direct contradiction of the burden's intention? If not, why doesn't Spitzer's statement address the specific impacts on the adjacent properties as the application explicitly requires? Given that no specific details or facts are included in Spitzer's response to the fourth burden, can Spitzer offer any reason to believe the nearby properties will not be impaired? And finally, regarding the claim that this proposal represents minimal variance that will afford relief, Spitzer's application claims that they are seeking the variance to address a hardship caused by the 20 feet of elevation change in the mandated 25-foot buffer. What evidence does Spitzer have that reducing the buffer by 47% is the minimal variance needed to relieve the hardship caused by the elevation change? How will reducing the buffer to 13.3 feet address hardships caused by the elevation change in ways that reducing the buffer to 15 feet or 20 feet or leaving the required buffer fully in place would not? And then I have a statement. As my questions imply, I do not believe that Spitzer Acura has any legitimate claim to a unique physical circumstance or unnecessary hardship that prevents them from conducting reasonable business under standard zoning ordinances. By their own statements at the July 9th Planning Commission meeting, their business is thriving to the point that they could theoretically expand their service department with an additional 5 service bays. In the application for this variance, Spitzer cites the steep grade within the required 25-foot buffer as the reason a variance is needed, but they provide no details whatsoever regarding how the buffer's steep grade hinders their ability to continue doing normal business as they have for well over 20 years. The reason for this strange absence of crucial details seems obvious. Their current business is entirely unaffected by the steep grade in the buffer behind their parking lot. They want this variance not to relieve a hardship caused by that change in elevation, but because, as Ms. Schuster stated at the Planning Commission hearing, they just want to grow. Their desire to expand their business is certainly understandable, and I don't fault them for it. But in this case, it's in direct conflict with the ordinance's third burden that a variance cannot be granted if the hardship is created by the appellant. I assume all businesses desire growth, but surely zoning ordinances exist to check that desire as it conflicts with the use of adjacent properties. That brings me to the fourth burden, the standard that a variance will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or district in which the property is located, nor substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use or development of adjacent property, nor be detrimental to the public welfare. Spitzer's application for the variance does not even attempt to argue that no harm will be done to the adjacent neighborhood. Their entire statement on the fourth burden reads, "The area is heavily wooded and the existing landscape is intended to remain in place as much as feasible." That non-answer to the question of impact is tantamount to an admission. If granted, this variance will do significant and irreparable harm to the adjacent residential neighborhood, permanently altering its character. While the area in question is somewhat heavily wooded now, the wooded space is relatively narrow beneath the spreading canopy, and the area will obviously be much less heavily wooded if the required buffer is reduced by 47%. Since Spitzer fails to acknowledge any impairments to the adjacent properties, as required in the variance application, I'll summarize them here. The required 25-foot buffer separates residential properties from the activity of a commercial business. The loss of nearly half of that buffer would bring Spitzer's buildings, parking lots, cars, lights and dumpsters, not to mention the increased noise pollution of additional service bays, substantially closer to our homes. Since Spitzer plans to eliminate mature landscape in the buffer,
the variance will also forfeit much of the physical barrier that separates our homes from Spitzer, other commercial properties, and the busy highway immediately beyond them. This will greatly increase the noise and light pollution that we already experience, especially in the winter. Further, Spitzer's plans do not seem to include a retaining wall or fencing. As they clear dozens, if not hundreds of trees from the steep buffer, they will undoubtedly increase the problem of erosion on this steep grade, putting both the remaining buffer and our residential properties at risk of further loss of landscape. The lack of a retaining wall or fencing also raises safety concerns. Young children play in these yards, and as Spitzer cuts into the grade to build additional parking, they'll necessarily create a high ledge within 14 feet of our children's play spaces. Spitzer Acura does not care that they will cause these harms to their residential neighbors. They won't even acknowledge that these impairments are certain if their request is granted. They just want to grow. Again, I don't fault them for that ambition, but the applicable zoning ordinance makes clear that this self-created hardship is not justification for a variance, certainly not one that will do great harm to the adjacent residential community. I appeal to the zoning hearing board. Please hold Spitzer accountable to the burdens laid out in Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code 910.2 and the Peters Township Code of Ordinances. Spitzer does not come anywhere close to meeting those standards, and the glaring insufficiencies of their application demonstrate contempt for their neighbors and the ordinances themselves. Please deny their request.
Any questions for Mr. Clark?
I don't have any for Mr. Clark. I do have some for Mr. King based upon statements that were read. That's okay, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. King, does the township have a noise ordinance requiring decibel levels to be met or not to be exceeded?
All of our noise ordinances are enforced by the police department and not through the zoning ordinance.
So those noise ordinances would still be in effect, and if there's any violation or alleged violations, they would be investigated, correct?
Correct.
Similarly, the township have ordinances pertaining to light or glare infiltration on neighboring properties.
Yes, it does.
And again, those will be investigated if any complaints are made.
That is correct.
Okay.
Mr. Clark, you can sit down.
The application only pertains to property owned by Spitzer or by Ms. Phillips, correct?
Correct.
So there is nothing, nor would the applicant be allowed to remove any trees or do anything on any neighboring property other than the property they own,
That is correct.
or it owns, excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
State your name for the record, please.
My name's Paul Shirey, and I reside at 208 Grandview Drive.
Mr. Shirey, could you spell your name for the court reporter, please?
It's S-H-I-R-E-Y.
Did you provide a letter to the township?
No, I did, well, I did to the initial hearing, but not for you. So I got a copy of it here, I can read it.
There isn't anything in this record, is that correct, Mr. King?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Thank you.
So I'll read it, and it's only a page. All right, and then I'll leave a copy here, okay, my name's Paul Shirey, I live at 208 Grandview Drive. Having purchased my home in May 2025, I looked at property from Burgettstown to Peters to Washington, wishing for a suburban setting with some woods. I found that here in Peters, and in fact, I see on your logo, it has a tree. Right? And also, I'm fortunate to find good neighbors and good services here. While I am close to Route 19, I have a good buffer of trees behind my home, which cuts off noise and provides a nice country setting. I paid for that aspect, and also have a large porch on the back of my home that looks into those woods. In addition, I have a nice fire pit in my backyard where I can enjoy evenings with friends and family. Looking at this proposal by Acura, it would seem that the woods behind my home are all going to disappear, or maybe not all of them, but a good portion of them, being replaced by a shrub, high-intensity lighting, and a parking lot. That's not what I thought I was getting by moving to Peters and paying the higher taxes here. I expect I expect you as the planning commission to look out for your neighbors and keep the country suburban setting that we found that we moved in. I have read the response by my neighbors regarding arguments against the variance, and at a minimum maintaining a 25-foot buffer is required by Peters Township, and am in full agreement with them. In addition, I've just received notice of an assessment hearing with the tax office for Washington County on September 25. This hearing is due to an appeal by the school district regarding my current tax assessment. I presume they wish to increase my property taxes due to my recent purchase of my home, and at the same time, this plan by Acura would noticeably decrease the value of my home were it to pass, since I'm no longer going to have as nice a wooded area. This is just not equitable. As a U.S. Navy veteran and adjutant for Chapter 64 Disabled American Veterans, as well as a retired IRS exam manager, I primarily worked in Cranberry Township office, but I did manage a Washington, PA office when the manager there suffered a serious injury. I expect my rights as a property owner to be fully upheld. I trust this letter will express my desire to see this parking lot expansion disapproved, or at a minimum, the 25-foot buffer maintained. After listening to the testimony here, I have some other issues. I understand it's, from what I heard two different estimates, either 20 or 25-foot drop. Okay, there were two testimony by both Acura folks. One said 20, one said 25. So those evergreens are going to have to be pretty dang tall to overcome the 25-foot drop. Okay, and I just turned 69 on Sunday, it sounds like about 15 years before. I don't know if I'm going to still be here by the time they actually grow up and cover that. Second, when asked about whether they could still operate there, as far as what Acura noticed, it was stated that there's nothing certain that says that they have to expand, and they could do something. Well, they could do a lot of things. They could actually go the other way too, right? Maybe we're going to all get smaller vehicles or something. I don't know. And also, it's been pointed out several times that this is not necessary to meet the minimum, even with their expansion, is what you said there, Mr. King, that they still meet the minimum requirements as far as parking, even with the expansion we have here. And also, I have an existing retaining block wall in the back of my property, and I'm concerned they're going to have to dig into that slope to put that in there, that's going to cause erosion, and that retaining block wall may disintegrate afterwards. So that gives me real concern. So that's what I have. Would you like a copy of this, young lady?
A couple things just to clarify.
Thank you.
Sir, are you planning to mark that as an exhibit? Do you want that on the record?
Sure. What do you want me to put on here?
Well, I guess they have Exhibit H as all the neighborhood communication, so if you could.
Exhibit H, okay. Do I leave it with you, or?
I can take that
Over
for you.
here.
Just as a point of clarification, sir, and I'm
Yes.
sure it was just a misstatement, this is the zoning hearing board and not the planning commission.
Oh, sorry.
Quite all right? The
Well,
zoning-
that was my initial, sorry about that. Yeah, this is for the zoning hearing board.
And the zoning hearing board is tasked with enforcing the ordinances under the laws of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, not necessarily to look out after any landowner, be it for or against any application becomes before it. So I just want to make that clarified, because I know you said these individuals who sit up here should be looking out for your interest. That's
For
not-
everybody's interest, I would think.
That's not the duty that they are tasked with. The zoning hearing board, it looks to enforce the ordinances under the laws of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Which are enacted to
I'm
look
not
out
here-
for the interests of the
I'm-
people.
I'm not here to argue with you, sir.
Okay. It's all right.
I'm just pointing out what my understanding is of the laws of it's the same way as the applicant, who is a landowner in this township, has the same ordinances available to it. I just want to make that clear. I also want to make it clear, so Mr. King, if within the confines of their property, Spitzer could go and cut down all of the trees and all the buffer between the property that it owns, correct? It would then have to place a 6-foot tall, minimum 6-foot tall buffer trees and bushes and all of that.
That is correct. They could remove all of the trees on their property and replace them with the minimum standards as set by our zoning ordinance.
So that, and I know this is of some concern, but I don't want to leave that false impression. The way I understand the laws of the Commonwealth and the ordinances in Peters Township, there is no obligation for a property owner to leave any of the trees that now exist in that area. They could cut them all down, but they have to provide a buffer area of a certain size as required by the ordinance.
That's correct.
The erosion thing is a big issue, though, I think, possibly.
Well,
They're gonna have to cut down to make that level, so.
I don't have any idea about that. The engineer made it.
You can be seated. Anyone else wish to testify? Go ahead.
Samuel Matei, 204 Grandview Drive.
Did you provide a letter to the township that's in our packet?
I did not. I chose to speak and
I'm just
state my
looking,
case.
so I don't have to look it up.
Just have a few things here. I would also like to request party status as well. I just want to say that this is a service department addition, not a simple parking lot expansion. The title blocks on the plan submitted with this variance application say Spitzer Acura Service Department Addition. I won't go through all of the 5 points of criteria for the variance, just touch on a few to expand on my neighbor's comments from earlier. Under number 1, that there are unique physical circumstances or conditions and that the unnecessary hardship is due to such conditions and not the circumstances or conditions generally created by the provisions of the zoning ordinance. My only point here is that Acura cites there's a 20-foot steep grade. There's a 20-foot steep grade change from the proposed parking lot expansion to the residential homes. The residential lots are at a higher elevation than the parking lot elevation. My point is that even if the grade were flat, that the applicants could still not place parking, light poles, stormwater controls inside the 25-foot buffer. The unique physical conditions they cite does not create the need for the variance. The voluntary building expansion does. On point number 2, the variance criteria, that such physical circumstances or conditions, there is no possibility that the property can be developed in strict conformity with the provisions of the zoning ordinance, and that the authorization of a variance is therefore necessary to enable reasonable use of the property. Spitzer Acura's own website promotes them as a top-rated dealership for all of Pennsylvania. This is a quote from their website. There is a reason that Spitzer Acura was named a 2024 Cars.com and Carfax top-rated dealership. They were also top-rated Acura dealer for Pennsylvania. It is because we have the resources and the skill to take care of all of your automotive needs at our Acura dealership in McMurray. These statements demonstrate that Acura currently has more than a reasonable use of their property. They do not explain why the variance is necessary to continue this. They only describe the grade in this question. On number 3, the hardship is not created by the appellant. Criteria that such unnecessary hardship has not been created by the appellant. The written response verbatim from Acura is, the vertical rise from the proposed parking lot ranges from elevation 1046 to elevation 1060. Visibility from the residential lot is at a higher elevation and would be looking above the proposed development. Proposed development would not be visible from the residential lots. There was a picture shown earlier that demonstrated the height of the trees. That was at one section of Grandview Drive. Grandview Drive is sloped. It is much higher the further up the street you go. I do not believe that picture conveys the exact, I don't know if you can put that back up.
I believe that was one of the pictures on the table.
Yeah, taken when the trees were without leaves in the wintertime? Is that?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, that was on the table. That was on the table.
That is a lower part of Grandview. So the higher up the street you go, it's much higher. Just also to mention, from some of the topographical, those are very large trees, and if some of them were to be cut down, the pictures don't describe the canopy actually pushes further out into these properties. So just wanted to also mention that. I also do believe that Acura is already in overflow parking. I just want to mention that. There's a lot, I don't know if we have a picture of it, but there is a lot. It's actually directly behind my house, which I believe is overflow currently. Also want to clarify, and I believe that I heard architect, but I just wanted to clarify that in their statement on number 4, the variance, if authorized, will not alter the essential character of a neighborhood or district in which the property is located, nor substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use or development of adjacent property, nor be detrimental to public welfare. Acura's response is, the area is heavily wooded and the existing landscape is intended to remain in place as much as feasible. As much as feasible is a subjective statement. Was there any supplemental information submitted to substantiate the claim? The document originally submitted was stamped by a professional engineer. And I just want to clarify that as section 440-504D2 of the zoning ordinance requires that all landscape plans for parking lots 5,000 feet or greater be designed by a landscape architect or other professional nurseryman. I did not see that stamp on the original site plan. And if that is the case, I would ask the board not to use this as it's not compliant with the zoning ordinance. The intensified service area, adding 5 additional bays, which would require roughly a 40% increase, and displace 11 parking spaces, requires a 9,349 square foot parking expansion. This intensifies service activity, noise, air tools, headlights, movement, all of it, combined with the reduced buffer, will alter the residential character of Grandview. The 25-foot buffer area A exists precisely to prevent this. There was one other picture as well that I believe was generated. It was after the fact. Yes, this one. I have a question. The stormwater plans show a diversion ditch and a filter sock that directs runoff towards a residential property line. Would this diversion ditch be on the other side of these pine trees or evergreens? And if so, does a diversion ditch, or is there allowed to be vegetation within a diversion ditch? Would it?
Did not the planning commission look at that when they reviewed? Mr. King, if you know?
I do not recall the specifics of a diversion ditch being discussed or not at the planning commission meeting.
Sorry, sir.
No, that was my question, was if there was supposed to be a ditch on the other side of this. And if vegetation is not allowed to be within that ditch, would that increase the buffer, or decrease the buffer, I'm sorry, to cut in to what's there? Final statement is that the hardship is self-created by a voluntary service department addition. The property has already a full reasonable use under the 25-foot buffer. Reducing this shifts the burden of intensified commercial activity onto the residential neighbors. It removes the current screening and puts dumpsters closer to homes and undermines the purpose of Buffer Area A, along with the comprehensive plan's goals for proper transitions between commercial and residential uses. They have outgrown their footprint. This is not unusual. Granting this variance would set a precedent that any commercial property may reduce residential protections when it wishes to expand for economic reasons. I would ask the board to place a higher priority in protecting the rights of residents of Peters Township than on the expansion desires of an already successful commercial operation. That's all I have.
Anyone else wish to testify? Go ahead.
Dean Kelly, owner of 3637 Washington Road, the business property right next door. My only concern is it has nothing to do with the buffer zone. It's about the amount of paving and the amount of water runoff. All the water from everywhere
I don't mean to cut you off, but wasn't that discussed before the planning commission?
I do not recall if there was communications about stormwater specifically during that hearing, but the applicant did present engineered drawings detailing any stormwater facilities or stormwater management during that planning commission meeting.
I was never informed about any of this until I got this letter recently. I knew nothing about any other expansion in this. I was never notified that they were doing any of this until I got this letter from Mr. King. This is the first I've heard about this.
This board is only dealing with the issue and the requested variance. Anything, you started out your statement saying
Yeah.
it had nothing to do with
Well,
that.
mine is about the water, that by paving all that water is gonna come on my property. Through the drainage ditch, there's a pipe in the back, and the drainage ditch that's there, that all comes onto my property. By paving more, it's gonna affect my property, and I'm already gonna have to talk to the township about problems with the pipe in the back, where they Mr. Zukar years ago put that in, and there's some damage at the bottom where it's eroding my property, and my hillside will eventually come down. I did talk to an engineer about it. I did email you this recently about the easement, but you didn't get it just until a little while ago. That's my only concern, and I just wanted to voice that concern. I didn't know anything about this until today.
This is a confusing process, so there's a difference between zoning approval and land development approval.
Yes.
And your concerns fall under land development, which this board has absolutely
See, I
no
knew
oversight
nothing
over.
about this expansion or nothing. No one ever sent me a letter that they were gonna do this until I got this letter from Mr. King. This is the first time I heard
About
it.
what you're saying,
Yeah.
or any member of the board, but you have to take that up with the township.
Yeah, he gave me a number for a gentleman that I will call
Okay.
tomorrow. But I just wanted to voice my concern because the amount of rainwater that comes off of their property already, I can show you a quick video. I mean, it raised my hillside. In the back, I still have a valley, as you all know.
So you had all those problems that you're describing regardless of whether that paving
Well,
exists?
it's
Do you
getting
think it's
worse.
gonna get worse?
It's gonna get worse if they add that much square footage of paved ground. Cause right now, last, flood Sunday, it went up about 25 feet in that valley. I have a video of it, and I'm sitting at the top of my hill, and I can see the water like I'm looking right at him.
Mr. King, can the
Yes.
administration offices assist this gentleman, or?
Yes. You did give me,
Somehow listen to his complaints and
Yes,
address
so
it?
I gave this gentleman, Mark Zemaitis, who is our head of our engineering department, his card, and have directed him to reach out.
Yeah, I mean, I will contact him. I didn't know, like I said, this is the first time I heard about any of this.
Okay.
Or I would have been at the other meeting too, but no one said anything to me. So,
You still have time, because they haven't taken any action. They deferred their action so that we can make a determination on this variance.
Okay. I mean, I can talk
And
to
then
her.
the applicant will move forward
Yeah.
depending on the outcome tonight.
yes, like I said, mine is how much drainage is gonna come on my property. All the water comes on my property. Every bit of water from Acura up comes onto my property, dumps in a valley, and goes through a small tube under the Honda. When they developed the Honda, I personally feel, and I'm no engineer, but they engineered that parking lot wrong, and I've had trouble with it already, and I've spoken to the township when I first bought the building. Like, if my hillside goes and my building goes, who's liable? I mean, that's,
Perhaps you want to contact an attorney also.
that's easy, that's easy, so. But that was my own concern.
Yep.
Wasn't indicating
All right,
it was
any
hard,
other-
I just did contact.
Any other people wanting to speak against or for?
Well, I would point out that there is an existing drainage ditch, I guess, down at the bottom of that property, right? And I'm just wondering what's gonna happen to that. It would seem, from my guesstimate, that where they're gonna put those trees in, that's gonna be part of that, where that drainage ditch is right now. So I don't know what happens there. Are they putting drains underneath it, or what?
Again, it would be my suggestion that those are the questions that should be raised to the planning commission
Well,
and council.
that would be right in that buffer area is where I think it is right now.
I understand, but
Big.
they're the ones that approve land development. This board is just looking at an ordinance requirement for a buffer area. So,
Any other questions for anyone? Can I have a motion to close testimony?
Does the applicant wish to answer any questions or say anything on any furtherance before the record's closed?
I'll make a motion to close the testimony.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can we have a motion to, you want to caucus this?
I would suggest that the board deliberate on this matter, and if it intends to render a decision, you can come back out and render a decision.
So we're going to take a brief pause.
Yeah, for purposes of deliberation. Okay, so back on the record, let the record reflect that the board took the opportunity to deliberate. And now, Mr. Chairman, turn it over to you.
All right, I ask the board members for a motion to approve or deny.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to deny the proposed variance.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call?
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Ms. Pacholski,
Yes.
Mr. Higgins,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
and Mr. Griffith.
Yes. So with that, the motion to deny the variance is approved. A written decision will follow within 45 days. If anyone is opposed, they have the right to file an appeal with the Court of Common Pleas of Washington County.
Mr. Chairman, and my understanding of the laws of the Commonwealth is the applicant or anybody who is affected has 30 days within which to appeal the decision of the board. The 30 days begins effectively tomorrow. Within 45 days of tonight's decision, findings of fact and conclusions of law will be filed. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have the third case, case number ZHB 26001257, a request. Oh,
I meant to carry, get all this stuff from people.
A request for variance from 440-50583 of Peters Township zoning ordinance by Michael Rizzo on behalf of Camino Development for the property located at 619 E McMurray Road, specifically to reduce the landscaping buffer area C from 10 feet to 6.5 feet along the side yard. We will make staff's memo to this board summarizing the hearing, Exhibit A, and the applicant's application to zoning hearing board as Exhibit B. Mr. King, was notice of this hearing properly advertised and posted?
Yes, it was.
Do you have a copy of these notifications?
Yes, I do.
This legal notice, its proof of publication in the Observer Reporter, a copy of the letter sent to property owners within 600 feet of the subject property, and proof of the property posting will be Exhibits C, D, E, and F. Exhibits G and H and I are applicant's narrative, plans, and building renderings. Exhibit J is the buffer area C detail. Exhibit K is the applicant's revised request. Mr. King, would you provide us background and analysis on this case?
Yes, so the first thing I want to note is that after the notices went out to neighbors and were sent for publishing in the newspaper, the applicant met with us and gave us a revised drawing and stated that the amount of relief requested could actually be reduced. So their original request was for a 6.5 foot wide buffer. After their revisions, they are now only requesting a 7 foot wide buffer. So their amount of relief requested has been reduced by half a foot. This is also a project that went to Planning Commission last month. At Planning Commission, one of our outstanding comment letters was regarding this buffer. So Planning Commission has tabled their review of this application so that the applicant could come before this board and request a variance. This property, just across the road and up the street a little bit from where we are today, is approximately 1 acre in size in the town center zoning district. The current use is commercial, the proposed use is commercial. Surrounding uses is commercial, municipal offices, educational with the school, and when you go out a bit further, there's some single family homes. The lot itself is mostly flat. It's currently comprised of 2 parcels. Those will be consolidated with the land development plan. The proposed improvement is a roughly 10,000 square foot multi-tenant commercial structure with the required parking. The buffer that we are considering before us, or having you consider tonight, is here adjacent to the bank just across the street. There is a required 10-foot wide buffer required around all of the parking. Just the buffer here on this left side along this row of parking stalls is the request from 10 feet to 7 feet in width. This buffer is required for all parking areas adjacent to the property line in the zoning district, and the request is for a reduction. The applicant mainly cites the packaging of the lot as the main hardship. It's very narrow. They're trying to fit this building in. They're required to have certain stall lengths. They're required to have certain sidewalk widths in front of the building. They're required to have certain aisle widths between parking spots. They're also required to have a rear cross access easement. If there's ever future development on adjacent lots, something the township has as a policy is that there will be future rear yard or through lot connections. The applicant, I will note, has made several attempts to revise the layout of this lot and their parking with staff prior to Planning Commission and since Planning Commission. One of those revisions enabled them to reduce the amount of relief requested. If the board decides to approve this variance, we would recommend conditions that require the applicant to update their plans and revise them prior to returning to Planning Commission, as well as our standard conditions for 1 year post-approval for the activity to begin. And any future changes to the buffer would need another variance. That's all I have for you.
Mr. King, so the ordinance requires a 10-foot buffer area. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the applicant is looking to reduce it, or they're asking for a 3-foot variance. Is that correct?
Correct.
So that the buffer, instead of being 10 feet, would be 7 feet.
That is correct.
Thank you.
And that's for additional parking?
That is for the minimum required parking based off of the size of the building. I do not believe that there is additional excess parking proposed with this development.
And that is based on the size of the building that they're...
That is correct, yes.
So if they reduce the size of the building, that would reduce the parking?
Yes, the reduction in the size of the building would reduce the overall number of parking required for the site.
Garrett, could you put up the site plan, please, on the screen? Yeah, that one there. Is there no side setback?
So in this zoning district, I believe the side yard setback is only 5 feet. So you'll see there is a bit of a gap here.
Yeah.
But for parking, the buffer yard parking is greater than our zoning district standards.
It's interesting, like, the building can be 5 feet, but the landscaping is 10 feet. Isn't it to get the width of the cartway going through? That's why the parking's been pushed down.
Yes, so the parking has to follow minimum stall width and drive aisle width.
Oh, I see on your one, there's a dimension. Okay, 24 foot. That's why they're pushing into the landscape buffer, because they have to be 24 foot between the opposite sides of the road.
Correct.
And the 6-foot sidewalk that's shown there, that's also the minimum required to satisfy the standard as well?
Yes, so the zoning district requires a 6-foot sidewalk along the street and up to the face of the building. They are extending that along the entire length.
Okay, are they required to, then, is my question.
At minimum, they're required to do the length along the street and to the front of the building. I believe building code specifies the width from basically the front of the building all the way down.
Okay, so are we sure then whether or not that 6-foot sidewalk that they're showing building to building is the minimum required?
I do not 100% know that. I believe the applicant would know.
Okay.
Garrett, in your summary of the case, you brought up the cross-access easement as well. Not, obviously, that's not part of this tonight, but is that on the plan?
I don't know if there's a layer showing it on this plan, but you can see there's space between these parking spaces here, and there's a space left here, because there will
Potential
need to be an easement for that future through access somewhere on the site. They've elected to put it here, similar to if you were familiar with the site just across the street, they also are proposing it in the rear.
Okay.
This is a question that council typically asks, or along these lines anyway. Is there a de minimis, or is there a deviation from the 10-foot requirement that the planning department would ordinarily consider a de minimis request?
Yes, so similar to the first case we heard tonight, all of our dimensional de minimis that we would evaluate as staff would be rounding from half a foot or less.
Okay.
So what is the required number of parking spaces for that size building?
I do not know that calculation off the top of my head.
It's under the zoning chart here.
There you go.
Okay.
It's on the right hand side of the plan. Looks like 50 spaces were required for that calculation.
I think it's 53.
Any other questions for Mr. King?
Sorry, the landscape buffer crosses the driveway, or should that be just trimmed out? Yeah, there.
So the landscaping buffer is also required between the road and the front of the building, or parking spaces. I believe they just continued that line for ease of drawing, but there you can see where the trees stop right before the edge and trees resume.
The board is a quasi judicial body. As such, we ask that anyone providing testimony in this case be sworn in. Whoever is here tonight wishing to testify in this case, please stand and be sworn in at this time.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give today will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Anyone you wish to testify, you come up and sign in, state your name and address.
David DiLallo, and I live at 101 Red Oak Drive, McMurray 15317.
Mike Rizzo, I'm the engineer for the applicant on behalf of KLH Engineers. Our office is 5313 Campbell's Run Road, Pittsburgh.
All right,
Yeah,
well,
floor.
I guess state your case.
Okay.
What's your hardship?
So the reason why we need the hardship is we're trying to create a desirable tenant space, and to shrink the building, it's just getting too small. So we reconfigured the parking lot so the parking would work with the building size. And we spoke to the fire department, and they said that they would rather see what we're proposing, that parking lot be for the ease of access for fire trucks and emergency vehicles. So that's why we went back to that parking lot setup. In this easement, or this buffer request that we have, so the lot, there's 350 feet of lot line there, and we're only asking for this in 110 feet of that 350 feet. You know,
210.
210, I apologize, 210 feet. You know, as far as, someone mentioned the sidewalks too, and it is a 6-foot minimum, that's what it is. And we're trying to work with everyone here. They asked about if we would take the sidewalks and bring them up into our sidewalks to make this more pedestrian friendly. You know, so we're trying to work with everybody, and we just feel that we just need, in this parking lot, we just need some compromise, because to make the building, we shrunk the building down to where it is, and we can't get any smaller, and we just need that, space. Again, we feel like we're bringing a wonderful improvement to this town center zoning, and this, I don't know, I just think we got to work together on this thing. That's my request.
Yeah, and I'll add to what Mr. DeLaulo said there. So we presented this plan to Planning Commission back a few months ago and got overwhelming support from Planning Commission. The only thing that they asked before they would approve it is that we have the zoning variance in place. So we originally went through several different iterations of this site. We've tried angling parking spaces, we've tried adding walls. The site, unfortunately, is just too narrow to be able to do any kind of development in there of any kind of reasonable scale. So our opinion is that reducing the buffer area by 3 feet still preserves the original intention of the buffer area. It is still creating, as the zoning ordinance says, a designated space to separate uses of properties, right? So these are two commercial lots. It's not as if it's commercial abutting up against residential. It's commercial against commercial that are gonna be sharing at least somewhat similar uses. So reducing that buffer by 3 feet should minimize the amount of visual conflicts that exist between both properties. It is also a very weird situation in that this zoning district actually has no side yard setback. So we were not actually aware that this buffer applied until after we had submitted the plan, or we would have done this a while ago. But the building can be right up against the property line, and the buffer area has to be 10 feet. So we have a weird situation where the building can be right up against the property line, but yet there still has to be a buffer area there for the parking lot. So, I mean, it is a weird, kind of situation in the zoning district, but I'll add to that and say that we are maintaining the use of the buffer area. We don't foresee any conflicts. We're improving the buffer that's out there already, which is essentially like 2 streetscape trees in the front yard. So we are absolutely increasing that buffer area and doing the best that we can to separate the uses.
What is the dimension from the, I'm not sure what side, but from the building to the property line?
3 feet.
3 feet?
Yes, and that 3 feet is there because there is actually a grading buffer from the property line,
Oh, right.
or otherwise the side yard setback would be 0. Yeah.
So if there was no grading needed, you'd be able
Yes,
to get that?
in theory, yes, you could build the building right up against the property.
Is there gonna be any, I guess another 3-foot buffer there? Is there gonna be any back doors in these buildings? Like,
No, that building is gonna be sort of underground in the back, so we're gonna have doors at the sides and at the front, but there should be nothing.
so there'll be no one walking out?
Yeah, no one will be
potentially
walking out the back.
trespassing?
Yep.
The best depiction of that is at page 17 of the PDF, I think. Well, you can kind of see it even where we just were, but to make sure
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And we are at almost the exact minimum of parking spaces that we need for the building use. I believe we had maybe 1 extra space, and that was about it, so.
No other variances for this site other than the buffer?
Knock on wood, as far as I'm aware, no.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. DeLillo? You have a question? No. You wanted to testify?
I want to
Right.
testify, yes.
You two can
Okay.
sit down.
Thank you.
We're here to object approval of the variance. We attended the zoning planning meeting. And my understanding that has not been approved. There's another hearing. There were 4 conditions. I was wishful that we would have been first, because this has been a long night for you guys, and I'm sure you're all spent. So I'm going to make this as quick as I can. There were 4 conditions of concern that we had. Were the property, Gary, can you bring up right below them? And I'll explain our concern. There was a picture. I have a picture here too, if we need to.
This is probably going to be the best one that I have on hand.
No, there was earlier the picture.
Page 12 of the PDF.
Yeah, the PDF of the actual site. That's a perfect. That's coming in from the front, but we're right below. And there's about, I would say, about an 8 to 10 foot grade from their property down to ours, and we had to put a retention wall there. And that retention wall, obviously, you know, freeze and thaw, that water can push on that. Right now, you have their property as 60% vegetation. Now, you're trying to move this to probably 90% asphalt. You can imagine how much water that's going to create. I know when we built our building in 2006, we had to put extensive stormwater management systems in. I'm not exactly sure we're addressing that with the Planning Commission on that. At that last hearing, they said excess water is going to run out onto East McMurray Road. So that condition, after that meeting, we went and looked at that. When you enter our building off of East McMurray Road, it's going to slope into our property. So that's a concern that we got to address with the zoning. So excess stormwater management's going to hit our property. We had a condition of concern of snow removal. Where are they going to put their snow? This winter, we got so much snow. We got a really big buffer in the back of our property. We're able to push the snow there. That buffer couldn't even handle the snow from this winter. We had to have dump trucks come in and bobcats to remove it. So they're asking, the last meeting, we were a little bit felt better because of that buffer. Then we got this notice of a variance that they're going to even reduce that buffer. So that's even going to raise our concern greater. So we're concerned with stormwater management from this by reducing the green space as well as snow removal because of that slope that stepped down to us. Now, you had mentioned your job is to ensure that the ordinances are met. I was glad that you prefaced that. There's the 5 conditions that homeowner met that they got to meet to get this variance approval. I asked Garrett if they met all those conditions, and he wasn't sure if they met all the conditions of the variance.
That is up to the board members to determine.
So I'm pitch hitting here. My legal counsel was supposed to be here to manage this so he could talk to legalese. He couldn't make it back from Harrisburg. I'm the president of the credit union, so that's why I always have to pitch hit no matter what happens. I also reside in the community. I live at 174 Bebout Road in Venetian myself. Our business has been here 20 years. We always support everything in the community, and we're asking you to support us as a long-term business and to address this, and we're trying to prevent that concern that we're going to have. Just recently, you know, the rain that we had, all the developments around here, you probably are familiar with all that water runoff on Bebout Road, on Turkey Foot. The conditions of overdevelopment caused from stormwater management. So I'm not sure that their system in stormwater management is going to be able to handle that when you're getting rid of that, and it's going to severely impact ours because the water got to come downhill.
Was that raised at the Planning Commission? Because this
It
board
was.
is dealing with their request to go from 10 feet to 7 feet, so there's a 3-foot variance.
And I'm asking for that, and I'm prefacing that because those conditions are why we're asking for this variance not to be approved, because of
But this
that.
board has nothing to do with stormwater runoff or snow removal, so that you understand that.
I do understand that, and we're asking you to enforce the zoning ordinance and hold that variance to that 10-foot because of
I
that.
understand what you're asking.
Mhm.
I'm just indicating to you, because this board is not able to render a decision. Those are circumstances that should be brought before the planning commission and council, and not the zoning hearing board.
We are bringing that to that, but we're asking
How
for
does
the
that
variance
happen?
not to be approved because of the preface of the planning commission has not been resolved, or at least postponed until those
So,
areas are
right.
addressed.
So it'll go back to planning, and I suggest that you bring up those comments to the planning.
We already have.
Well, the next meeting.
Okay, so for the variance, it's gonna cause us a hardship with the stormwater and the snow removal because of the reduced green space that you're providing. 3 feet reduction on 200 feet is gonna create a substantial additional water. And then that's why we're objecting to it. Question, you say that the building can go to the, did you move the building back to the property line on the upper part?
We moved it to where we can move it.
You can't move it up that direction
We
any
cannot move the
further?
building anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's 3 foot grade.
If I might just add something, this stormwater situation, these are engineered drawings, and this is what the Peters Township requested. We didn't fudge these numbers. We were approved on our stormwater by the planning commission. This is what they said, this is what it has to be. So I don't understand how, it's probably a conversation for another meeting, but we're not dumping water on you. We have this engineered to,
Right.
by township specifications.
And-
This meeting is not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
this
we're
board
gonna
doesn't even
address it
decide
at the
that.
next meeting, and that,
And as-
that's why we got
and
legal
as a
counsel
good
involved on
neighbor,
that.
there's only one place to put snow. He mentioned at another meeting, we're gonna plow snow on his parking lot. Why would we do that? Come on.
Just because
No.
the
there's no
restaurant
because.
right now below us, you know you got a development right below us.
Mm.
Now, they had to push their property next to the property line too. But they're below us, so they're not impacting us. They called me today to ask for something, and Crossroad Motors is plowing their snow on them, and they said that's something they gotta address. So he can say all he wants about being a good neighbor, it's gonna happen, you have to put snow somewhere. And when you have these big snows, so we're concerned about that buffer to manage that.
So,
That's our point.
You know, the purpose of this board is to vote on the variance.
Mhm.
That is a different topic.
And do we have a right to appeal if you approve that? You say we can,
Any affected party has a right to appeal before the Commonwealth Court, yes.
okay. So-
Excellent.
And
Court
we'll
of
let our
Common-
legal counsel handle that then.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to testify that we're addressed these concerns with the planning, then we got this notice, so we're addressing it with you. We're asking the variance not to be approved because of the conditions we're addressing with the planning commission with that. The rules are on the books for a reason. You have that buffer for a reason. We're asking you to hold to that.
All right.
Thanks.
Any questions? So can we have a motion to close testimony? There's no more further questions?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're gonna pause and discuss. We'll be back to issue or approve or deny.
I go back on the record, and the record will reflect that the board took the time to deliberate on this matter. Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, can I ask the board members for a motion?
I'm gonna make a motion to approve, the variance subject to the criteria set forth by the township. I don't have my glasses on, so.
Subject to these conditions that have been placed in
Yeah, they're in the record, I believe, yes.
I will second that.
Mr. King, can I have a roll call?
If I could I read those conditions into the record for the court reporter real fast?
Yes, you may.
So the conditions would be that the applicant shall submit revised plan sheets to update the land development plan currently under review. Second, that the variance shall expire if the applicant does not begin the permitted activity within 1 year of the date of the building permit issuance. And third, that any future building permit application that proposes a landscape buffer other than what is permitted by the provision of the zoning ordinance at the time of the application shall require approval by the zoning hearing board prior to issuance.
I have a question. So you're not holding this subject to the 5 conditions to qualify for a variance?
There's been a motion and second to approve the request for variance, and the board will take a vote on that.
So I didn't second it. I just
For a roll call vote, Mr. Stevens?
I would be no.
Mr.
Yes.
Chalsky, yes. Mr. Higgins?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Griffith?
I would be no, too. So with that, the motion is approved on a vote of 3 to 2. A written decision will follow within 45 days. If anyone is opposed, they have the right to file an appeal to the Court of Common Pleas of Washington County.
And that appeal is to be, my understanding, laws of the Commonwealth require that appeal to be filed with the Court of Common Pleas of Washington County within 30 days of the board's decision. 30 days will begin to run from tomorrow. Within 45 days of tonight, findings of fact and conclusions of law to said decision will be issued.
Okay, that's it.
We're out.